exactly what you're talking about. Is why some people have a fearful experience. Well, if you want to become a Buddhist monk and you've gone into a Zen Buddhist situation where you have a Shaolin monk who's over you, oftentimes you'll get the little koans, the words of wisdom from them. But sometimes they'll actually take the side of a wooden sword and they'll hit the person with that on the back. Not enough to hurt them really, but enough to where it hurts. It refocuses them and takes their attention to somewhere else. And maybe that's some of the negative stuff that people go through. I've talked with. I had one case that I think about a lot, where this guy is he's another person who's in the military. It does seem like a lot of people in the military wind up having contact. But this guy was a Marine, and he was in his barracks, and he was taken from his barracks, and he was scared to death. I mean, the entities that he had, they scared him. It seemed like it was almost intentional. Did they hurt him? No. He wasn't hurt, not physically, but he had a psychological shock from them. They made him stand up for himself. They made him stand up spiritually. As they more or less told him, we're going to take your soul from you now. And he told them, he got in their faces and he said, you can't have my soul. He was a Christian. He evoked Christ in his speech, right? But talking with other people, people will bring up their source. It can be a spiritual background that they have. It could be just that which empowers them. But he told them, no, you can't have my soul. It belongs to God. You can't do that. And that was almost like, that was the last thing he remembered. And the next thing he knew, he was in the middle of his barracks, kind of shivering with his bunkmate, like trying to help him. Took him to the shower. The guy had like this weird black grease stuff all over him. And it was a very, very strange case. And he, this was when this happened back in the 1970s. Now he's an older man. And speaking with his family, they said that, well, this really, really affected him. But it seems like this guy has a very, a strong spiritual thing to himself. And maybe that's what he needed was to be scared at that point. And maybe they were teaching him something. I feel like my own personal, I just one more sentence and I'll let you go. I'll let you talk as much as you want here. But I feel like my own experience was scary, but that it opened up all these doors that were positive, like synchronicities started happening in my life, and my sense of empathy for others was jacked up to a huge new level that I haven't felt before. And maybe that's what it took.
Yes, I understand everything that you said. I understand and I agree with you. And I like what you said. And I feel like there's one of the strains or the threads that seems to be common. I noticed, and I think I've heard other people say this too, that there seems to be sort of a correlation or a link up between sightings or experiences in military bases and these sightings, right? And it's something I've never, but there's a thread or a connection between military and spiritual things or disciplines, aren't they? Like a vibration. There's a vibration or frequency that's similar, and disciplines are something that is necessary in both of these paths, both of those pathways. So a frequency a common frequency. There's a common frequency to both of those paths. I'm seeing that. I saw that when you were speaking. That is.
I love that.
It is interesting. The thing that you mentioned about the spiritual teacher, and I forget the stick that you talked about. There are some people in meditation will sometimes have a tendency to fall asleep, and the teacher would go around with that stick and give them a little whack. Wake up.
Exactly. That's the same thing. Yes.
Yes, it is. Now, I also I was asked my name in the beginning. There's a little story that goes with this. That's interesting because I was talking about it's as though there's a higher intelligence working with it. So the name that I had changed my birth name from, I changed it to Sarah Zeffins, Zephyn. And there was someone living with us at the time. So I changed it legally to Zephyn for my last name. So my father, who was living, my father, who was in the early 80s, and it made it very easy to change it legally. So I changed it legally, my last name, and there was a flow to it. People just began to call me Sarah Zephyn, my first and my last name. I had it changed legally. But my father, who was living on the island at the time, he went to the he loved the library. Then he went to the library, and he didn't have the internet or anything like that. So there are some of you alive who don't know what that's like, but some of you do know what that's like. So he went to the real library. He came back to me a couple of months later, and he said, Sarah, you know there is nobody in this world who has that name, Zephyn. Zephyn. Nobody.
I love it.
What's that name? Now, the other interesting thing about that to me is that at that time also for years, I had been interested in numerology. So I had been doing numerology on all kinds of things with name changes up until this contact experience. But remember, I said, I don't remember anything that happened with it, And the way that the final name change, not with the first name, but the last name happened was that I had been working, there was an ex-client of mine, and one day I had, he needed a ride, and I gave him a ride, and we were going up this little mountain pass on Kahikiti Drive is what it's called, in the early evening, and I could still see it clearly. And you know how you just get that energy? You can feel it. Mm-hmm. I get it sometimes, and his name was Eugene, and I could feel it. I had one of those clairsentient moments. I could feel it. I don't get them all the time. And I told him what I was doing and about the last name. And I looked at him and I asked him, and he said it. He said that name. And I knew it when he said it, that was it. And that's how I got that name. I feel like it was just zoomed, like channels. So all that work with the numbers and the letters and the adding it up and all that stuff, that's not where it came from. I feel like it came from like a place. See, so you would say, like, did it come from that contact experience?
I love that. Well, it was meaningful to you. You see, it was meaningful and your other name wasn't, right? This was a name that you picked for yourself, and it was meaningful. And there you go. I mean, that's a good and positive thing. So, and it reminds you of your experience. It reminds you of Hawaii, I'm sure, and that can't be a bad thing. It's a beautiful area, Yeah. You're mentioning, I was thinking Diamond Head, is the one place when you were talking about your feeling of beauty. But I've been in that area.
No, this is on the windward side. This is on the windward side.
Okay. Are you talking about the drive between Waikiki over to Waikoloa area, across the mountain through the tunnel?
For which experience, the big love one or the name changing?
I don't know. I'm scared I know you or something. I worked over there for the Navy.
She did.
You might, yeah.
Okay, I was in the military, roughly, or in the government, we'll say. NASA, Houston, May 10th, 1967. But my papers were all signed and filled out before that, but that's the date. But I got transferred from there to New York, Chicago, Great Lakes, Denver, Lowry Air Force Base, Edwards, somewhere out in the Vegas area, and then Hawaii. And then so Hawaii, I was up there 88 to 94, I think. When were you there?
Okay, so I left, though, in 87. Oh, no, and then I came back again, though. I went back again, though, there, and I was still doing, so you know what NASAP is then?
I know what uniform in and out. I was personnel information security and worked for Pearl Harbor. And even the gentleman that had to have his clearance to come on and be in charge of the entire island, because everybody was under investigation, I had to clear him. And he and I had, I didn't have his paperwork proper, and he and I went into it. Do you know who I am? I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just doing my job, man. You know, so it was a rough time for me in intelligence, but we learned how to clear. Yeah, I learned all the classifications and all that. So you are GS, our former GS?
But my friends were. So I was just a contract worker. In fact, the gunny sergeant that I worked with, he said, you're gonna be like a paper clip someday. He goes, you're gonna be like a rubber band. He goes, that's
okay. So you were
office supplies or something. But I worked on Kaneohe Marine Corps Air Station Base. It was beautiful.
Too, Kaneohe Base. I was 13 Corps over there. Yeah, I was the woman in black. You remember them hanging some grapes out there on the helicopters?
Yeah, but it is. I was young, you know. I was
too. I'm going to be 70, lady. Now, you got to tell me a name, man. This is not good. I own this station. I've been here 9 years, and I'm celebrating. Earl came on after 9 years. Well, however long I've known him. I thought it was many more, but at least since 2015.
6 years, probably. But,
yeah, about 6 years. And okay, so you were a contractor, a government. Do you know? Can you say? I mean, it's part of your history, but you know.
But I see. But it's interesting. So my little rubber band paychecks, you know, went out to a different name because I changed my name right after, and then right after I changed my name, I ended up leaving there.
Yeah, we used to go by Social Security numbers when it was hard copy. I was in when we still had hard copies. I had control of the files over in OPM area, or Personnel Information Security. I got in with all the files on the island, see. So you would have had a hard copy over there if you were. But now government contractors came in.
I mean, I could tell you names. Like I could tell you names of the people that I worked with. You know what I mean? Like of the
maybe we should
gunny
do this off air because
we could do that.
It's perfectly okay if you want to remain anonymous. I never ask people their name if they're uncomfortable with, you know, sharing it. But you know, something interesting now. There's such an interest from our visitors in the military. I mean, it's just over and over again.
It is.
I mean, the Marina guy I was telling you about, and I'll tell you, so many people that I talk with, so many experiencers. You know, one woman I was talking with, the first time she ever saw a UFO, her dad had been transferred to another Air Force base, and they're driving there, and she's looking out the back window of their station wagon, and there's this silver disc that's following their car. How often I've heard these stories, you know. My mom, technically, she was never in the military. She was a contractor, like you're talking about. She worked in a contractual way. As you know, that's what Howard Hughes was doing as well. I mean, that was the first, you know, military. One of the first. I talked with one guy, Richard Souter, who's written a few books about our underground bases, and he couldn't tell me a whole lot about Hughes.
When was this?
Yeah, you know, Richard, he's an interesting guy, and he told me he couldn't tell me.
I need to tell you something. Your mother, when you were talking about your mother, you've never read my book, Roswell UFO Encounters, have you?
I have not, no.
I talk about underground base and the golf carts. So you didn't know I wrote about that stuff, do you?
No.
Most people have
Richard
no
Souter
clue who
writes
I
a lot.
am. And I am so open book to the entire world. But even Jim Mars, you know, Jim was a good investigator, and he knew I was out of Texas. Yeah. And he had issues, but I know all about his story and his investigations and all that. But between him and Stanton Friedman, they kept me secret, just like the government did. So I'll tell you now that I'm retired, both of you and anybody that's listening, our government has changed a whole lot, and I really feel ignorant about the intelligence world now. However, I've been tracked my entire life. I had followings like you're talking about through cars. My children did. It didn't matter if we lived in New York, Rochester. We had white lights with balls, red lights coming out. We had them following us in cars.
Sure.
I went across as a truck driver, had them follow me. I was there in March 13th, 1997. I happened to be there with the big lights coming